Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. This is the City of Homestead City Council Budget Workshop. Today is Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021, and it is 2:02 p.m. We have a roll call.
Councilman Roth, Councilwoman Avila, Councilman Shelley, Councilwoman Bailey, Councilman Fletcher, Vice Mayor Faircloth Staggers, Mayor Losner.
I'm here. Thank you. All right, Madam Manager, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The subject of this budget workshop is the water and sewer rates as well as bulk trash. Our city engineer and director of public works, Julio Brea, has a presentation on each of those topics.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm going to go over these two issues, the water and sewer rates and the solid waste plan of action, we want to call it that. First, I want to just mention, and this is something that I told myself that I was going to say, is that our employees that are working out there in the field in both of these departments, I mean, everything that we do is because of them. I mean, absolutely. They have stepped above and beyond what I see in comparison with other cities in terms of just the power, the employers, the number of employees that we have, but also in what they do on a day-to-day basis. And you'll see that throughout the presentation, you'll see how we compare to other cities and how I think that what we're doing here is just, it's remarkable. I've been here 18 years, and in the 18 years that I've been here, every year we've tried to streamline and get our operations as most efficient as possible, and I think we've done a great job, and it's because of them. It's really because of them, because we've been able to maintain the workforce at a certain level and not have to increase when other departments and other cities have had to do that, and we've been able to somehow make it work. So I wanted to go over the water and sewer rates first, and basically just start out by just giving you a brief history of where we are now and how we've gotten here, right? So in 2019, that was 2 years ago, the city enacted for the first time since 2008 rate increase in water and sewer. During that time, even at the 2008 rate change, it wasn't necessarily an increase in fees, but it was a reorganization of the way we charge for our services, making it more of a conservation-based type of rate to basically, allow people to get a reward if they conserve water. So in doing that, the people who use more water are being charged at a higher rate than the people who use less water on a gallon-by-gallon basis. So we did do that increase in 2019, and basically it was to just bring us up to so that we weren't subsidizing anymore the department. I mean, for the longest time, this department had a very healthy reserve, and we were using it on a year-to-year basis from 2008 till 2019, because we knew that the economic situations were pretty rough out there for people, and we didn't want to have them, have to deal with us increases on a year-to-year basis. So we made the decision, the city made the decision to basically keep the rates the same and be able to work through that, through that hard time. But it got to a point where we have to balance our books. In essence, the reserves were no longer able to keep up with that type of subsidizing effort. So we have to balance the books, and that's what we did in 2019. And what we also did following that was, our council at the time, they enacted a resolution to allow for increase on a year-to-year basis based on the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, that covers water, wastewater, and utilities. So that's what we've been using for the past 3 years is on a year-to-year basis, increasing it by that amount. In other words, staying up with how our costs increase and just basically trying to keep up so that our budget continues to be balanced. So, and that was just in the last 3 years. Before that, I just wanted to show on this next slide is, oops, I went one too much. Sorry, there we go. I wanted to just show how, from year to year, how the increases were done. In 2002, there was no increase. Then in 3 and 4, we had a 2% increase. In 5, no increase. 6 and 7, 2% again. In 8 was the last time that we had that 2% increase. But again, that 2% was added mostly to the people who used a lot of water instead of the average users. They almost didn't see any change in their rates at all. And in 2010, it was when we enacted the conservation-based rate structure, which got us to where we now can charge different rates for different amounts of uses. So this is where we are now. So our population since year 2000, it was about 31,900. Now we're at 76,334. So what has this done? This obviously has increased demands on operations. I wanted to, and I put in bold at the, for some reason it's not showing on the screen up on top, but the number of employees has remained the same since the year 2000. We basically we're between 26 and 27 employees, depending on who retires and who gets hired. So we haven't gone above 27, and we haven't gone below 26 since 2000. And in that time, population has increased by 151% increase. We've had, and this is something that you don't necessarily see unless you're involved in the operations of the treatment facilities and on our service area as a whole, but the regulatory agencies from time to time, they increase their requirements on cities, and it's up to the cities or the municipal water providers to figure out how they're going to cover those additional requirements. Those include permit requirements, personnel requirements in terms of what the minimum amount of personnel you're allowed to have per 1,000 customers, and all these are based on statistics that they use, and our permits, our operational permits are based on those numbers. So the numbers that we have, we're like at that level. We can't go any lower from the employees that we have because we meet the criteria for the amount of population that we serve and the amount of gallons per day that we treat, both when you look at the system as a whole, but also the treatment capacity and the treatment operations that we do in the plant. Just as an example, the wastewater treatment plant, we're always supposed to have at least one individual there at all times on the operations, making sure that everything's operated. And for the most part, there's supposed to be at least 3 or 4, depending on the hour of the day and the day of the week. And those we have to meet, and we have to prove to the state and the regulatory agencies, whether it's federal or state, that we meet that workforce requirement. So also, I just wanted to point out that since 2000 to now, our customer base has increased from 10,000 to 22,000 customers. That's not population, that's customers. So each home is a customer per se. So that's why our population is 78,000, but our actual accounts are about 22,000. So that's 120% increase. Water lines. This is a really good number to look at because as cities grow, obviously more lines are needed to be put in place for both water and wastewater in terms of providing the water and also collecting the wastewater and making it go to our treatment facilities or off to the county for treatment. And just our water lines have increased from a total of 176 miles of total pipelines that we have throughout the city to 256 in that amount of time, 45% increase. Sewer lines have gone from 89 miles to 139 miles. That's, again, 56% increase. And our water treatment demand has increased from around 4.5 million gallons per day to 12 million gallons per day now, 166% increase. So all that, we've been able to absorb all these increases in terms of size of facilities and treatment and just operations in general with the same amount of employees since the year 2000. So what we're proposing is, in order to, again, like I said in the first slide, how we need to just make sure that we balance our budget, and that's our bottom line, right? We're keeping the employees at the same number, and what we are doing, which we've done for the past 3 years, is increase our rates by the CPI, which this year is 3.44%. And in addition to that, we're adding a 1% increase for county pass-through. And what that is, I put a box at the bottom of the slide to highlight that. The county charges, some of our flow goes to the county. We don't treat all the flow that the city customers produce. And on the water side, we also purchase some water from them. We're actually the only city in the county that still has a wastewater treatment plant. Even though we don't treat everything that we produce, we still are the only ones. All the other cities are serviced by the county 100%. So, but the flow that we do send to the county, we have to pay what's called it's a wholesale rate. It's the rate that the county charges to all the cities in the county based on per 1,000 gallons. And it's a cost that it's not as high as what they charge directly to their residents, because it's a wholesale purchase and the water goes as a whole, so they don't have to like deal with pipelines, et cetera. We deal with that. So on the water side, they're increasing their rates this last year or for this next year coming up to a 3.88% increase on the water side, the water that we purchase from them. We purchase about 2 to 2.5 million gallons per day from them. And on the wastewater side, they're increasing their rates, their wholesale rates, by 5.37%. These rates, what they do is, on a year-to-year basis, they project what their costs are going to be. And at the end of that year, they do an audit to basically true up whatever their projections, whether they were up or down. In some cases, they give some money back to the cities. In other cases, they charge more. In this case, last year, they underestimated the cost, so they are actually charging pretty much all the cities a little bit extra. So we're paying a little bit for last year, and we'll take care of that in the first 3 months of this fiscal year. That's usually how they split up the cost. It's not a lot of money, but they do that on a year-to-year basis, so they use their actual expenses to serve the wholesale customers, and they just divide it up per 1,000 gallons, and everybody pays the same rate. All the cities pay the same rate. So taking that into account, the 3.44% increase for CPI plus the 1% for the county pass-through, that's 4.44. This calculation that I did here was based on an average customer household that uses about 6,750 gallons per month. That's an average. That's like a county average that I'm using. Some people may be a little bit above that. Some people may be a little bit below that. But that's the average whole household. And what they would see on a month-to-month basis is a $2.31 increase per month for the service. And if you go to the next slide. So I like doing this because I like to show how we compare to other cities, right? So what I did is we took this new rate increase and I compared it to most of the municipalities in the county, the ones that we could get a hold of. And this is compared to this year's rates for them. So they haven't told us what they're going to increase their rates by. So we're actually comparing our next year's numbers to their numbers from this year. And we're still the lowest at an average of $67.40 per month compared to, most of the ones that are serviced by the county are $70.48, and then you have some other cities that charge even above that. And I put there Broward County just just to show how we as a county compare also to Broward, and Broward County charges an average of $87.40 for that same use of 6,750. So that is what we're proposing, and we'd like any comments or questions.
Council?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I have one question. On the previous slide, what is that difference between the flow range at 3 and then at 3.75? What does that mean?
Where are we?
The
On
middle,
which slide? Which slide are you looking at?
the top middle box that has the current rate. Well, it's on both.
Yeah.
It says flow range. What's the difference? What's the 3.0 and the 3.75?
Okay, so that's our tiered, that's what I was talking about, our tiered conservation rate base, where if you use less than 3,000 gallons per month, you get charged at 94 cents per 1,000 gallons. If you use more than that, you get charged $1.30. So that's why the bill is split into those two segments. So you get charged a different rate. The customer will get charged a different rate based on their water consumption, and it's a way to just get people to conserve. If you conserve, you can also save money in the process.
No, I definitely applaud your efforts on that because we need to really try and set the bar as high as possible with water conservation. So the first 3,000 on anyone's bill will be charged at 94 cents, and
Correct.
then anything additional will be at the 130.
$1, exactly, yes.
Okay. I think that's the only question I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Roth? Question, maybe you said it and I didn't get it, because I'll admit, sometimes fast in math, but seldom accurate. This increase is intended to cover what the county is passing through to us. And does the balance of the increase cover our normal operations cost? Are we still short, or is there cushion in there? Or is it just a washout?
Okay, that's a very good question. So the pass-through only applies basically to two line items on our budget, which is the county charge for wastewater treatment and the county charge for potable water. They charge us a certain amount. So that we get a number, and we project it for the year. And when they increase, we find what we did is we figured out what that increase resulted in terms of dollars for the whole year in us. We added that to the budget, to the balanced budget, right? To make sure that we covered that expense with that addition. And it turned out to be 1% increase to all the customers. And if we did that, we covered that additional cost for just those two line items.
Right, that are out of our control, that the county
Those are out of our control,
imposes
exactly.
upon us.
And the rest of the items, we're using the 3.44%, the CPI increase for all those other items. That's what we're doing.
Okay, but does the 3.44 over or under cover everything else?
It's like right there. We have maybe like $100,000 more in there just as a contingent, but it's very close.
Okay, and to pick up on some of the terms that we've used in other budget conversations, efficiencies and economies of scale. And I get that we haven't hired any new employees, but their benefits have skyrocketed since 2000. I get that. But are we comfortable, or are we working on anything to make sure that our meter reading is accurate? Can we, do we have the telemetric systems, or are we still paying folks to physically go out and lift the concrete lid off the box and physically read the meter. So I guess that's where I'm getting into some of those efficiencies.
Correct. And that's, again, another great question. Those operations are not under water and are not under Public Works. They're under the general fund. They're covered by them, right? So and in addition to that, we do maintain the meters ourselves. So we replace those ourselves. But the actual operations of meter reading and all that, it's beyond our budget operations, right? So,
Wait a minute, but what they read impacts your income.
oh, absolutely it does. So we work very close hand in hand with them, and it's a constant communication between them and ours. When a meter goes down, when they can't read a meter, we're the ones that get that purchase order, and we are the ones that have to go and make that change. That falls under our maintenance of our system. But the actual act of taking the readings, that is not under our operations. It falls under a separate budget department, not under ours. In addition to that, the purchase of the meters also falls under us. So when we are, like you mentioned, we are continuing to improve in the handheld readings so that you don't have to let go. And the idea is to follow what the electric department has done. They started a program. They're making their meters to be read remotely. And the idea is when we decided on the system, their meters will relay our meters as well. So the idea is that when their system is set up, they will be able to read our meters, and it would reduce on the amount of personnel that you would need to go out there and do the actual day-to-day readings, right? They would only be needed to take care of what they call, misreads or special conditions that you have to send somebody out there to see what exactly is going on. But outside of that, yes, the idea is to automate the whole meter reading operation, and it's always a constant communication between us and the customer service department to just make sure that we stay on top of the readings, and that they're accurate.
Okay, well, thank you. And I really don't get why the general fund pays for utility meter readers, and I don't want to have that conversation now, but I guess my concern is
Yeah.
being done accurately.
Right, they don't. The general fund does not pay for the meter readers. It's paid out of the utilities, the enterprise funds, between the electric utilities and the water and sewer.
But it's a
Yeah, that's
flat
not
fee.
what I just heard, though, or what I thought I heard was that payment of those people comes out of another bucket. Isn't that what Julio said?
Well, not strictly out of his bucket, and maybe that's what
Yeah.
what was the confusion.
Yeah.
But it is an enterprise budget. And to Julio's point, that is the program that, it's always being worked on to increase the meters that are being read remotely to make sure that they're efficient. With the ARPA, one of the projects, if you recall, that we're looking at is to do a more comprehensive meter replacement program and just making sure that efficiency and not only that, but accuracy.
And again, for me, it's easy to say that for the average consumer, we're talking about, air quotes, only a $50 a year increase. And if that's a legitimate increase, it's a legitimate increase. I just want to be certain that we've done all we can do to make sure that we can't save a few bucks somewhere else rather than just ignoring issues and passing it along to our consumers. And my final question is and I know it's been an ongoing thing for years, particularly, I guess, more so with the wastewater side, which is more expensive, the infiltration. And I know that several years ago, Florida City caught several commercial users washing motel laundry with well water and then flushing it through the wastewater system, but they weren't being charged for that because it wasn't coming into the meter as a billing mechanism. And I'm not saying that's going on here, but are we reasonably confident that we don't have a lot of I guess you all call it infiltration, leakage into the wastewater system that we're having to pay for, where nobody's paying for that water when it comes in.
So, yeah, and that is a universal problem. It's not only Florida City that has it, it's everywhere in the world, basically. Wherever there's a water, system out there, there's going to be some sort of, it's called unaccounted for water. It's water that you don't read for whatever reason, whether it leaks or it's misread, and all those fall into categories. And the regulatory agencies, they set guidelines for that as well. So you have to stay within a certain percentage, and it's imperative to stay within that percentage, because if you don't, then you're basically wasting more water than you should, and you should figure out what's going on. Constantly, we are, whenever there's people just call, there's a water leak here, water leak there. Those are taken care of right away, because again, all that is just water that's being treated, but not ending up in someone's home, et cetera. And the same with wastewater. With wastewater, the same thing happens. The wastewater lines are underwater. They're in the groundwater. So the pressure from outside the pipes water can get into the pipes. And again, the city has done several projects in order to line the sewer collection lines from the inside with sleeves. They put sleeves in there. They're epoxy, polyurethane sleeves that basically seal up those pipes and don't allow any clean water to basically get into the sewage. And what you're doing, you're ending up treating more volume than you should. So that's always ongoing programs with that. And again, there's a lot of those unfunded mandates that the agencies put out on a yearly basis have to do with a lot of those issues, basically making sure that the municipal providers or whether it's private providers, whoever, that they keep up with all these operational and maintenance issues to make sure that you're not wasting water. Because the whole thing, from a regional point of view, the South Florida Water Management District, that's what they're tasked to do, is conserve the water that we have that comes from Lake Okeechobee, right? So that water, there's only a certain finite amount, and we just got to keep using it. For example, that's why the district has made it a rule where they're not increasing anybody's demands any longer. You want to increase your demands, you gotta go to another source. Saline water, go deeper and get brackish water, and you have to spend the money treating it. So they don't want you to keep using the groundwater. So whatever all the municipalities have been permitted for, that's what they gotta stay at. So again, those are all universal, I guess, problems or challenges that every utility has to deal with, including us. Yeah.
That's a really valuable nugget of information. As these bigger projects come toward us, maybe it would be a good idea with each one to figure out, okay, on average, how many units do we have left in the entire city, new units available based on whatever the industry calculations are in terms of our permitted allocations. So
Yeah.
thank
That
you.
is always, yeah.
That's all I have on the water and sewer issues. What do you need from us? Just a kind of a nod of plug that into the budget
Nod
that's
would be
coming
good.
to us? All right, you've got my nod. All right.
All right, so can you put the other one up? So now let's go to wastewater, solid waste. Okay, so looking at bulk waste pickup, as I'm sure we all know this past year has been a very challenging year when it comes to bulk pickup. There has been, and it has actually, I guess, put a magnifying glass on the operations as a whole and how, and force us to look at to see how we can make it more efficient and actually more in line with what everybody else is doing in terms of frequency, et cetera, of operations. So first, going through our current service. Right now, for bulk pickup, we do weekly pickups. That means every resident gets picked up at least once a week. We've had, again, no rate increases since the year 2008, and no additional employees since 2012. Again, and we've been able to do that even though our population has grown by at least 25% since the year 2012, because of, again, efficiencies in operations, routing, realigning of certain routes, and also the equipment that we use. Since I've been here, we've changed the type of equipment, I think at least like 3 times throughout my 18 years here. When I first started, we still had people, hanging onto the back of the trucks and actually doing the cans by hand. And of course, that's all developed, and that does bring some efficiencies. So we have seen that. But we've also seen, for example, and this is something that I just wanted to show here, when we send our solid waste to the county, we have no choice. We have to send it to the county. They charge us per cubic yard cost for our waste that we send there. So I like to make that distinction. We charge our customers a flat fee, but then we get charged by the county rate per cubic yards. And that rate, for example, since the year 2008 has gone from $57 a cubic yard to $63 a cubic yard. And in addition to that, I'll go into some of the changes in operations at the solid waste landfill that the county owns and how that has impacted our operations. So just looking at, again, I always like to compare our services to other municipalities in the area. And just as just highlights, Miami-Dade County has 36 different municipal providers. Of those, 25 of them, that's 70%, are collecting bulk pickup in less frequent than 2 times a month, right? So either 2 times a month or once a month, or in most of them, twice a year. And that's all that the residents get. And compared to us, we do it once a week right now. And still, looking at that, our rates are, or our fee is 98% lower than the highest rate in that category. So again, I'll show you a graph at the end that compares where we fall in terms of the totem pole, comparing us to other municipalities. So the challenges, and I started talking about this, and I want to go into a little bit more detail, but of course, the city has grown. I went through the numbers in the water slide, but it's grown quite rapidly, and we've been able to maintain the status quo in employees by, again, increasing efficiencies, and we're never satisfied with our operations in terms of efficiency. We always try to figure out how to make it work a little better than the previous year, and I've been doing that, and our employees have been doing that since I've been here. Now, one thing that did happen last year, and it's something that I don't know if it was coincidence or if it was a result of the COVID situation, but the county changed their operations at the landfill from allowing municipal providers, cities, et cetera, to be able to dump their loads at their tipping platform at the bottom of the landfill. In other words, the municipal vehicles did not have to climb the hill to the top along with all the other private entities or even residents that have to do that. And what they're doing now is they're forcing all municipalities to basically take their waste and dump it on the top of the mountain. And that's the mountain that you see from the turnpike. So our trucks have to climb that mountain every time that they have a full load to be able to dump it on top, when before we could just drive in and dump it on the first floor. So what does that do? That increases the amount of time that it takes for our routes to be dropped off, and then the clean trucks coming back to continue their pickups throughout their routes. So it adds hours to the day. Just every trip alone is an increase of about 30 minutes to an hour that they're waiting in line. And this picture that I put here this is every day. This is what you see in terms of what our truck drivers have to deal with to dump the loads of the city of Homestead at the top of the landfill, when before we didn't have to make this line. So now, if you could imagine, that line stretches probably for a quarter mile or so, and you have to wait for every truck to back up, unload, and continue down on the other side through the ramp on the other side of the mountain. So it adds time, and it reduces the efficiencies that we've worked so hard to try to achieve. So in addition, some additional challenges that we're up against is just the community appearance, right, and illegal dumping. Since we do weekly pickups, and this is something that I've heard from residents, but I've also heard residents that are for it and some that are against it, because what they say is, like, every week there's always a pile of bulk waste there could be a pile of bulk waste in front of every single house, every single week. And that just adds to, it's not as appealing, I guess, from an appearance point of view. And it's hard, and it makes it also hard for our code enforcers to be able to identify which are illegal and which are not, which are waiting for the next day to be serviced, or maybe they put it a day early. But they're always there. The piles are always there. So it just adds another little wrinkle to what we have to deal with on a week-to-week basis. Also, the fact that we pick up every week, it encourages people who don't live in the city to find ways to empty their loads just beyond our city limits in order to avoid having to take it to the landfill and pay a tipping fee for those clippings or whatever it is that they're doing. It's mostly yard waste that we see that's illegal, and it's mostly on the borders of the city, like getting close to where the unincorporated Dade County areas are. Again, it just invites people to come across and dump the load somewhere and not have to take it to the landfill and have to pay money. Because in comparison, everybody that lives outside of our city limits gets only 2 pickups a year, and we do it every week. So that is it's a huge disparity, and they do tend to want to take advantage of what we're doing here. And again, like I mentioned before, it creates challenges for the code enforcer, because they have to go out there and figure out what piles are illegal and which ones aren't, and it just makes it tougher when every week there's a pile out there, and it's hard to keep track of, was that the same pile that I marked last week, or is it a new pile that has just taken the place? And these are just some pictures that I put in here of some of what we see in terms of just bulky waste that people dump in areas that are not. If you notice, behind these locations, there's no residents, so it's obviously not a residential customer that's putting their personal waste in front of their property. These are all in, as a matter of fact, the picture in the upper right, they dumped it right under a sign that says no dumping. So that is what we have to deal with. So we have a couple of proposed solutions that we wanted to go over and get feedback on. So the proposed solution number one is instead of doing weekly pickups for bulk, do it on a monthly basis. That will put us in line with what 75% of the county does, or better, because, like I said, more than half of the county is getting only 2 times a year. It would increase and enhance the aesthetic view of our streets, because there won't be trash on a week-to-week basis on every road. And it does reduce, and there's been studies on this, it does reduce the amount of waste that ends up at the landfill. When people have less opportunity to put stuff out, they find creative ways to either reuse, recycle, do something else rather than just put it. The easiest thing to do is put clippings in the front of the house and have somebody on a week-to-week basis come and pick it up. But people do find ways to either create compost, put it as mulch material. There's all sorts of different things that people come up with, right? So it kind of, helps people find other alternatives to just putting the stuff out there to go to the landfills. And eventually, the county is running into an issue with landfill capacity. They have no other landfill but ours and the one up on North Dade. Once those reach their capacity, the waste is going to have to be hauled beyond the county limits to other locations. What the county is doing now is actually starting waste-to-energy plants where they're actually burning a lot of the waste and trying to reduce the amount of additional volume that's ending up at the different landfills that they have. And by going to less frequent pickup, again, it helps out code enforcement to basically identify illegal dumping sites much more efficiently and be able to take advantage of, since they're not there on a week-to-week basis, they have a better chance of catching them in the process. So that's one alternative. The second alternative that we looked at was going to twice a month for yard waste pickup only. In other words, the other household waste, such as furniture, chairs, etc. Those, what we will provide is a central facility for them to for residents to drop off those type of materials at our central, solid waste office, instead of putting it in front of their homes. And believe it or not, that's the furniture. I guess the volume of furniture and just miscellaneous household waste that we see, it amounts to about 25% of what we pick up on a week-to-week basis. And in some cases, it's kind of sad. Somebody will put like one chair to get picked up, and that means our truck has to stop. Person has to get out, get the chair, put it back in, just to pick up one chair, rather than maybe wait until there's a bigger, volume and then put it all out at once. So we see those inefficiencies, and this would help out from that point of view, that we're still doing twice a month, which is, again, way above what most of the cities are doing. And later on, I'll go over what we charge compared to other cities as well. So there's the two things to look at. One is what is the service and what is the fee for that service. But again, and this would definitely help out the code enforcement to do what they need to do and do it in a better, more efficient way. So both alternatives provide the needed operational efficiencies. Like I said, there will be no staff reduction. We will basically reassign the employees. The staff that are currently handling excess bulk waste would be reassigned either to trash and recycling routes to handle the growth within the city. And it allows us to then, again, be more efficient with the personnel that we have without having to increase our workforce. And this would also result in no increase in fees. We'll be able to keep the fees the same way we have them now. And the idea is for either one of these proposals is to start in January 1st, 2022. That would allow us, would give us time to do an educational exercise, and also just make sure that our operations are well thought out and planned between now and then, so that we could hit the ground running on January 1st, 2022. So like I said, I always like doing this, comparing our cost to other cities. So this is our existing, this is looking at what we do now, where we fall in comparison to all the other cities, pretty much all the cities in the county, I think. And we're towards the bottom. There are some that are below us, but most of these that are below us also, for example, only do recycling once every other week or once a month, and we do it every week as well. So even though this presentation doesn't go over recycling operations, which we do on a week-to-week basis, but it does show the cost of all solid waste services. So that's where we are now. If we were to maintain our operations the way we are now and be able to cover our excess in overtime and just, not in overtime, but convert the overtimes to added personnel and be able to continue doing the once a week pickup for bulk services, we would have to increase our service fees by 25%. That would put us at around $565 a year, per household. And that is compared with all the other cities, which, again, this would be us doing it on a week-to-week basis compared to all these cities that are under us that do it twice a year or once a month for some of them. So we will still be providing more service, but the fee would have to match that additional service. Now, if we look at either alternative 1 or alternative 2, we drop, and compared to everybody that does it on a two times a month or less, again, that's where we fall. We fall towards the bottom. And again, the 3 cities that are under us, for example, North Miami Beach, they only do, if I recall, recycling is every 2 weeks, and Florida City the same thing. So those fall below us because they do less in other fields than what we do. But still, we are at the bottom by maintaining the cost the same, but going either to the once a month, no restrictions on when you put out there, or once every 2 weeks for yard waste, and then the rest of the household products people could bring into our central location. And the next steps are, which I mentioned already, is we would hire this next fiscal year an engineering firm to do a routing study. We've done those in the past. Every so many years we do it as the city grows in order to realign our routes and make sure that they're evenly divided, because what happens is most of the growth is happening to the east, so those routes keep becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and the other ones stay the same. So what these studies do, it allows us to realign the routes in order so that they're more even. So every operator that goes out there in a truck will have plus or minus the same amount of residents that they have to pick up on a day-to-day basis. And of course, Following that will be a public information campaign, and then, and of course, the additional code enforcement operations that would definitely be needed in order to make sure that people continue follow this new process. And with that, I'm open to any questions or.
Thank you, Council. Councilman Roth?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, most of the complaints that I receive are all geared around trash pickup, solid waste pickup, illegal dumping in the city. I have a problem with taking out the stops as frequently as we have them. That will create a bigger trash problem in the city. Even if you try to explain to our residents the new schedule and the new plan and the new programs, because of the costs incurred, you're not reaching the people that are actually doing the illegal dumping in the city, which are the people that don't live in the city. So, I'm all for reducing it by half, maybe twice a month. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to educate enough people to take the solid waste that you won't pick up to our dump sites. But obviously something has to be done. To see trash out on the streets every single week is a challenge. And then, when the trucks break down or the servicing of the trucks is needed and they don't pick up on a regularly scheduled day, that stuff sits out an extra day, and then people start to call us. I'm sure you get calls when they don't pick up. So, we may understand what's going on and the truck may be broke down. Does any of these increases also help with maintenance of the truck and the crews and those things? And because
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because just by you're reducing the amount of miles that these trucks have to do on a week-to-week basis if you reduce the operations, right? And so it helps on that. It also helps to be able to finish your routes on a day-to-day basis, right? You can now spread out the same amount of pickups, but over a 2-week period instead of over a 1-week period where we do now. So that's if we go to the twice a month alternative. And it also minimizes the number of trips that they have to make to the landfill, again, because they're doing it less frequently. So those hours that they spent in line waiting to get to the top of the mountain, those are reduced by half. So that's why, we're able to do it and still stay within, because what we've been doing in the last few years is overtime, right? Because it's just become, and since we charge, and this is like, solid waste is different than water in this respect. Water, we charge customers by the amount that they use. In solid waste, it's a flat fee. So if somebody puts 10 yards out there to get picked up, 10 cubic yards, and another person puts 1 cubic yard, they get charged the same. It doesn't change the cost, right? Because there's no way to measure, what you're picking up on a day-to-day basis. So, but in light of that, we then get charged by the county on a per volume charge, because our trucks get weighed on the way in and then they get weighed on the way out. They do the math. That's how much we have to pay. So it's more of a challenge to project your expenses in solid waste than it is in water. In water is, the gallons that were used, the gallons, plus or minus, you can do the math, how much it is per population, and you can do the calculations for next year based on the population growth. But solid waste is a little different. It's a little more challenging, and sometimes you can get very good at your projections, other times not, so it all depends. This last year nobody expected this, industry-wide. What happened last year was a misnomer, it was like something that was completely out of, the norm, but people were at home, so when people are at home, they're gonna, like I say, if you give them the opportunity to put stuff out, they will put stuff out or do improvements to the home, et cetera, and put the waste out in front. So we did run into that last year.
Right, I agree. And we had some issues during 2019 and 20 in the villages, and we started to get a little bit more aggressive and even stopped a lot of the community spaces that people were dumping their trash into. So it was a weekly thing. It was an accumulation all week long that people would just drop and the stuff would sit there. And over the course of the year, up until at least now, the villages are a lot cleaner because of the villages doing some enforcement there and code enforcement doing that enforcement as well. Even in front of my house, they used to just pile stuff up. And for at least a year and a half now, there hasn't been anything in front of my house. And
Yeah, it's getting better.
everybody's been told that if you're going to be putting your stuff out there, you put it in front of your house on the day before or the evening before. And I know that people are trainable. We're talking about taking the entire city, though, and doing that in one time. And my my nightmare is the northwest section and the southwest section. What's going to happen to those folks when they don't get picked up on a regular basis? So those are just my concerns. I agree that there's always efficiencies that we can create. Going to twice a month, to me, I think is more than efficient, as far as the number of pickups. I was always shocked, and I'm still shocked after all these years, that we pick up 3 to 4 times a week, each resident. And that comparison you made, the guy putting 8 cubic yards and 1 cubic yard, there's a ton of residents that don't put anything out.
Don't put anything out there.
And they're paying the same price. So,
Correct.
It's just, you're never going to make it a perfect situation, but it shouldn't cost more than it should cost. And just like the water and the sewer, a lot of it, we're at the mercy of the county and what they're charging us to dump this stuff or to use the water or to recycle the wastewater. So, those are just some of my thoughts for now, and I'm sure you guys will have similar ones. But thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mayor. Right before the pandemic, we started a little campaign to try and help educate the Southwest of where the dumping should happen for residences and apartments, so that we could really help code enforcement crack down more on finding those who were doing all the illegal dumping. So we started it in Pioneer Village. I think it might have been a month before everything changed. But it was incredibly successful. We invited the whole neighborhood out, just put flyers at all the homes, invited them out, had food, and just went over. Everybody always dumps in the middle of we've got the medians in the middle, and nobody ever dumped right in front of their homes, well, hardly anybody. And just from that one campaign, there was a drastic change. It was always on the sides, just like that, with that sign where it says no dumping. That's where all the dumping happened. So then it's so hard to keep up the grass, and it just always looked unkept. So if we could possibly help in tackling all of our areas, I think that over the course of a year, we can make some drastic changes. And I volunteer 100%. If I can help with that, I think that twice per week is probably a good place to start. And I agree with Councilman Roth. I don't think it's going to be easy to get people to change that mentality of what the difference is, if it's only trimmings or furniture. And if, again, there is a way to encourage people to not dump so much, just like we do with the water, that would be a wonderful thing. I don't know how we can do that. I've been thinking, how do you measure that?
It's a little tough.
But no, I think 2 times a week, and if we can help with campaigns and just tackle some of the bigger areas that are the biggest problem areas, I think that we could definitely make a huge change in how the city looks as you drive through. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that ultimately, twice a week is very generous. I think it'll make a huge difference in appearance. If we're only doing yard type waste and we don't have furniture and mattresses and toys and all the other stuff, and I've got my qualms about 3 months being a sufficient educational period, but I kind of envision reaching out to landlords of apartment complexes and, you know, the normal places that, you know, we can all point to where they seem to be habitual problems for that type of waste. My question would be, though, and I understand that it's not a 50% reduction, but if we're only putting those trucks out on the road half the time, is there no room for a reduction to that $452 a year charge? And so that we're all talking about apples to apples. The $452 a year is your household trash, which is the green rollout can, recycling, and the curbside pickup of yard waste and anything else you can haul out there. Is that correct?
Correct. So, you know, the $454,
Whatever it is,
that amount covers not only bulk pickup, but also weekly recycling and also weekly garbage, you know, household garbage, which is twice a week for those. So it's true. Right now, a regular resident will have stuff out in front of his house 4 times out of the 5 days of the week. 4 of those days is either going to be bulk pickup, regular garbage on 2 days, and then the other day recycling. So they'll be out there 4 times.
Under the current system.
Under the current system, yeah. Reducing the bulk to just half the time. Keep in mind that the bulk first is just one of the operations that we do. So it's not like it's half of the budget per se. But our drivers are out there 14, 15 hours a day right now. So that is the reduction that we're hoping to make, so that they work regular 8-hour days rather than to go to, you know, work overtime on a day-to-day basis, which is what's been happening. So there is a reduction, but not in actual persons, but in the amount of hours that they operate, so we don't have to worry about the overtime that we have to pay for those individuals that have to finish a route, and it takes them, you know, 14 hours or so to finish the route. So that's where we're at.
You know, I get that, and putting on a resident hat, we're in effect telling folks that we are reducing services, but not reducing charges. So, you know, they're paying for far 2 less pickups.
But we're reducing frequency of service, but not the amount that they can put out there. They can put out every other week. They can put, let's say if they were putting 1 cubic yard every week, if they put 2 cubic yards every other week, we will pick it up. So in terms of volume, there's no change. The change would be in just the frequency that is done.
Yeah.
So the service, in my view, the service is the same. If I have something that I need to put out, I'll just wait an extra week and put twice the amount out. I'll put twice the amount out. So
Have we ever considered or done any analysis on the advisability of reducing the green can pickup to once a week? Here's my personal experience. Most of the time, even when there were 5 of us in my home, we really didn't need to put it out that second day during the week. The problem was if you forgot to put it out Monday morning,
yeah,
or Monday was the
Monday's
the
always the
holiday.
worst, right? It's always the worst day. So actually, just my own personal, and I'm with you. In my house it's the same thing. I could make it once a week for the garbage without very little problem. You know, I could do it, but that's become like a standard industry-wide, and everybody does at least twice a week for garbage pickup. It's just, that would, I think, put us way under the norm in terms of how, people are serviced. Just industry-wide, and not only here, but the whole United States. It's always twice a week. But you're right, I don't know why it became twice a week, that was the norm that was set up, but I don't need it twice a week. I can do without it.
Yeah, I know, because we're putting trucks out on the road and they're driving by my house and not having to stop, and they may be finishing
Yeah.
sooner, but there's still that cost of putting that truck on the road.
Correct.
To drive by where the can's not there on a Thursday that was there
Exactly.
on a Monday. What's the advisability of, in addition to the twice-a-month bulk waste pickup, providing an option in addition to that, or of a once or twice a year call-in pickup? Say if you're moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, what would be the benefits or the detriment to layering that in?
The only, and I would have to really analyze that type of operation, but if our trucks are doing routes, right, and the whole idea is to be efficient in terms of doing those routes on, let's say if it's twice a month, we're doing it twice a month now. So those trucks are going to be at a certain area at a certain time of the week or every other week. The thing would be, and I know that the county does that, they do the twice a year, but they don't do any pickups at all. So they're able to use their regular fleet and split it up, by using scheduling, programming, et cetera, to be able to address areas at a time with one truck. That's just like sort of like a swing truck that they go around and pick up things. In our operation, doing both would probably require either additional fleet or additional personnel to handle that one truck that's going out. Because for bulky pickup, the thing is that it's not like garbage that is one operator in a truck and that's it. It is the two dump trucks plus the crane operator that's in another truck. It's a truck that's in a crane that's in a truck itself. So it's a team. So that one team would then be, you're talking, I think it's 4 employees that are being used just for those one pickups, all right? So those certain pickups. But there's something, we could look at it and see if there's any possibility of doing something like that.
Just curious.
Yeah,
I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's the only thing is that it does take up one whole crew, not just one person. It will be
Gotcha.
one whole crew.
And two
And
vehicles.
three vehicles and 3 vehicles to do that. So the county can do it. Obviously, it's economies of scale, and also the fact that they don't need the trucks for anything else other than that. That's all they do. It's just twice a year, and it's just a difference in operations. I could ask around and see if other cities have tried that and see if they've done it, but I can't.
Right. Well, I guess you're looking for some direction from us, and my preference would be, I think that the overall, we've got to address the aesthetics and the appearance of the community. And
Mayor,
yes,
Councilman Fletcher is on the line.
go ahead. Sure, Councilman Fletcher. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Can't hear you.
Councilman Fletcher, you're not muted, but we cannot hear you.
How about now?
Yes.
Can you hear? Okay, perfect. Hey guys, I'm sorry for not being able to be there today. Just wanted to jump on real quick and tell you that I agree with what everyone is saying. I still think we can identify some efficiencies through reducing to 2 times per month for the bulky trash pickup. I believe the opportunity is there for us to do so. We just have to think a little bit outside the box. But let's I think continue to have this conversation and drive for looking for what those savings are. And also, I believe by doing that, it will allow for having the personnel not working those extra long days and have them available to address other areas of the city. With that, that's all I have for this particular topic, but I appreciate the time for jumping on.
Thank you, Councilman Fletcher. Councilman Roth.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, you mentioned the one pickup a week or the the trash cans, and I'm okay with that too, but also the recycling. I mean, how much recycling do you put in there? And on those days when you're sending out the recycling truck, you're actually sending a trash collection truck by my house and then a recycling truck by my house. And, you know, again, we're not reducing services, we're becoming more efficient because based on the chart that I saw here, if we wanted to maintain the services that are in place now, that would be an extra $100 a year for each person out there. So I like the thought process of reducing the number of pickups, but we're not reducing the volume of trash or whatever it is that they can put out on the street.
It's the timing of service, not the provision of service.
Yeah, that too. And I think
The county does recycling every other week, so they don't do every week.
they
So
pick up
that's
twice so they pick up twice a month.
Twice a
just
month.
like-
They do
I
twice a
mean,
month for recycling also, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be something to consider too. I mean, those are big cans. It's not like, I mean, I don't fill up, I empty my trash, I put it in there and I take it to the street. I mean, it's almost a waste. And I do it twice a week because you make me do it twice a week. I have to go out there twice a week because the people in my house say the trash goes in the can and it goes out Tuesday, it goes out Friday. If you didn't pick it up Tuesday and Friday, then I wouldn't have to do it twice a week. I'd do it once a week, but that's just my personal
And
situation.
keep in mind also that when you brought up the size of the can, that made me think of something. The county, for recycling, their cans are only 60-gallon cans. We use the same 95-gallon cans for recycling that we do for the regular pickup.
Right.
So they're doing it twice a month with a smaller
can.
and we're doing it every week with a 30% larger can than what they have. So.
Right. So might as well look at that one too. And then obviously, you don't shrink the fees where you take the recycling to because you're still taking the same amount of volume, just not doing it quite as frequently. And our trucks aren't going up and down the road as much
Correct.
too. So
Exactly. So you do save in fuel and something.
sure, there's fuel,
and-
there's manpower hours,
manpower
there's wear
hours,
and tear on the vehicles, tires, all that stuff.
Exactly.
So it all adds up to a little bit of something. So that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Councilwoman.
one more question real quick. Thank you, Mayor. If a resident was to ask for an additional can, are they able to do that?
Yes, but you do get charged for the additional can. If you get another can, you're charged like if you're two accounts. The same as the county, same as everybody. If you ask for an extra can, you get charged accordingly for that. Yeah.
Curious, because I know that there are quite a few households with multiple families. So in that case, then they would have to get
Yeah.
two. Okay, thank you, Mayor.
I guess if you need 2 cans, you better fill them both up every time and put them out there, or it's not worth it. So
I have one more thing, one more thought real quick. I know during COVID, we had shut down the on-site dump here on 6th Avenue. Is that open now? So that's also an alternative.
It's open. Yeah, that's open.
that's going to be for the stuff.
That's for the
in the
stuff.
future.
I mean, your couches, your refrigerators, and, whatever, you gotta, not that everybody's gonna be able to do that, but, there's other people that can't
does
get that
help.
stuff there. It's very challenging. But it's there and it's open now, and so that's an alternative as well, because that was shut down for over a year, so.
It is. It's open. It's been open for a few months.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
So to recap, and either one of you jump in if I misspeak, I think our direction is to program in the twice a month bulk pickup with the conversion to yard waste only, with the other items having to go to the Tar Central collection site, analyze both trash and recycle. Well, probably more so the recycling. I think the industry strand, people are accustomed, I guess, to having trash picked up twice a week, whether they need it or not. But at least look at the recycling and how we can create some efficiencies there, and then take a look at, and it may not go anywhere. Take a look at what it would be to have a call-in provision. It doesn't sound like that's going anywhere, but I think at least the recycling's probably got some real promise with it.
If I may
Councilman?
just, yeah, The problem I have with the twice a month pickup, limiting it to just the yard waste, might be a bit confusing to a lot of people out there. I mean, they're there. Is there a reason why you would only want just yard waste as a pickup twice a month?
It would reduce, I think, again, it would reduce the amount of bulk pickup, bulk volume that is put out there. People will find other ways to do it, and it also, again, if somebody puts like, a desk out there or something like that to pick up, it requires our operators to pick it up, dump it, follow in 4 vehicles, basically just to pick up that one item. Where putting it in a central location, once we fill up that bin makes one trip to the landfill, and it's a lot more efficient than doing it the other way.
I get that, but to me, and I'm only speaking for myself, that sounds like a reduction in service because we're not picking up that bulky stuff. You're making someone do something that they're not used to doing, but I understand what you're trying to do is we'll limit the amount of stuff they put out there, and make them haul a refrigerator or a couch and I think what that's going to create is people are going to refuse to do so, and they're going to be illegal dumping in the city anyways. So
Well,
I
as a
think
suggestion, what if we tried, and Mayor, to your point, twice a month, but it included the bulk items that we now pick up, to Councilman Roth's point? Because people would have difficulty getting to the central site. They would have the ability to if they wanted to do it more than twice a month, but I think that Councilman Roth is correct, or even that chair that someone puts out, the refrigerator, they're not going to be able to get it to the site. We could try it to see how it goes, and we could certainly consider including the recycling. And we have time. The idea is to have a very aggressive educational program coupled with enforcement early on to try to address the illegal dumping, which I think is a very big part of our problem.
and I'm not worried about our residents complying with the changes because it will be aesthetically more pleasing for their neighborhoods. I'm more worried about the people who are accustomed to coming into the city, and I'm speaking more so the northwest side and the southwest side, because they're vulnerable out there. They don't have anybody watching over them, and people stop by in the middle of the night. I get more calls out of those 2 areas than anywhere else, and over time, if we see that the program is working, we can continue to reduce. But when you talk about reducing services but not reducing the fees, I think if we just go cold turkey, no more solid waste, just your yard waste, I think that's going to create a lot of animosity. So I'm fearful of that. I'm good with it 2 times a month, but don't reduce what they can put out there right now. Maybe we follow it, see what happens, because I know once it's implemented next year, those that don't live in the city that aren't educated are still going to come into our city to put stuff in there. And it's just going to happen, especially out in those 2 areas, the southwest and northwest. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, but I don't, and I agree with you on the reduction of services, but I don't accept that we're going to live with folks coming in and illegally dumping. We're going to have the manager at some point talk to us about a camera system and some serious enforcement of that illegal dumping, because you only have to make an example of one construction guy or one landscaper and word travels. So, but in that regard, my thought on, kind of being supportive initially of taking the other stuff out of the bulk waste pickup, it's an aesthetic issue for me. So if we're going to continue that, maybe at some of these habitually problematic high turnover apartment and duplex locations, rather than having it spread out all over the street, maybe we could work with the property owners to designate the spot where these things are supposed to go, rather than having couches and mattresses and cribs and toys strewn over the whole right-of-way adjacent to the property.
Yeah, and to add to that, what happens in a lot of these, when you allow mix of different materials, it invites people to throw in just regular household garbage bags on top of the pile. And
I'm seeing
if you
a lot
saw
of that
some of those
lately.
pictures, our cranes to pick up that is very hard because it all falls apart as you're picking it up. Landscape material, and even if it's a piece of furniture, yeah, it's easy to grab it and throw it in there. But it just invites people to throw other kind of garbage into this pile, and now it becomes like a catch-all. And it does add, I think, to the to like a negative aesthetic look when you have, just regular kitchen garbage bags that are torn open because birds get into them or whatever, and it's all over the place, and the wind takes that, and it's gone, and it's no longer in a pile. And it makes it a lot more harder to keep the area clean when you start mixing all these materials.
Sorry.
All right.
One last thing, Mayor.
Sure.
I forgot to mention, we put cameras up in Pioneer Village, and we didn't even get them hooked up yet, but it's a really good deterrent.
Yeah.
And that should be code's first line of action, is in the trouble areas to put those cameras on that they can catch license plates and just go after anybody and set a good example.
One of the programs we're actually looking at, and we'll talk to you more about at another time, is one that does get the license plate as well. And we'd have the ability to put it where we want. We know that this is a common dumping site, we can put it there, and we can move it as needed.
Thank you all. Anything else? Appreciate it. See y'all in a little while.
Thank
Meeting
you.
adjourned.